The pink paper felt like a slap. Final notice. The word screamed in red ink. I traced the letters with my finger, sitting at my small kitchen table. Outside, the city hummed its endless song, but in here, the only sound was the frantic beat of my own heart. 15 days. That's what it said. 15 days to come up with 3 months back rent, or me and Leo would be out on the street. Leo coughed from his bedroom, a dry, rattling sound that tore right through me. The bottle of medicine on the counter was almost empty. His doctor said he needed the stronger kind, the kind our insurance called a premium therapeutic. I just called it impossible. My paycheck from Solara barely covered the lights and the cheap brand of cereal Leo liked. There was nothing left. Absolutely nothing. I pushed the notice away, my throat tight. My reflection in the dark window showed a tired woman with shadows under her eyes. This wasn't the life I'd planned. My chemistry degree was packed in a box somewhere, a memory from a different person, a girl who dreamed of labs and discovery, not bleach and trash cans. I gave all that up for Leo, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. But it was moments like this, with the walls closing in, that made me wonder if I'd made a mistake. If I was strong enough to be the only thing standing between my son and the cold. Later that night, the halls of Solara were quiet and gleaming. My cart squeaked as I pushed it into the main research lab. It was my favorite part of the building. The air buzzed with leftover energy, with the ghosts of big ideas. Equations and molecular chains were scrawled across giant glass boards, a language I still understood. I saw their mistakes, the tiny errors in their calculations. I'd see a bond that was forced unnatural. But it wasn't my place to say anything. I was just the help. The woman who made their coffee spills and crumpled papers disappear. Tonight, the trash can by Dr. Morrow's desk was overflowing. She was the head of the whole department, a sharp woman with a mind like a diamond. She must have been frustrated. I pulled out the heavy bag, and a single, crumpled paper fell to the floor. I almost threw it in with the rest, but something about the diagram caught my eye. It was a complex structure, but one component was circled in red with a note scrawled next to it. Useless. Destabilizes in every simulation. Dead end. I smoothed out the paper. The component was an extract derived from a hibiscus flower. A bitter laugh almost escaped my lips. Useless? My grandmother, back in her little kitchen that always smelled of cinnamon and rain, used to call that flower the binder of spirits. She'd boil it into her remedies, telling me it was the only thing that could make stubborn ingredients hold hands and work together. She said it didn't force them, it persuaded them. It was a peacemaker, not a soldier. An idea, small and fragile, flickered in my mind. A different way to look at their problem. Not as a war of chemicals, but as a dance. Hey, my friend, hope you're doing well. Drop a comment and let me know how you're feeling about the stories so far and where you're watching from. Some stories are too close to my heart to share on YouTube. I send those, along with little life lessons and surprises, to my email circle. If you'd like to be part of it, you can join with the link in the description. The scientists here were all about force, about pressure. They were trying to hammer the pieces together. But what if the answer wasn't a hammer? What if it was a song? I folded the paper carefully and slipped it into my pocket. It was silly. A fantasy. What was I going to do? Walk into Dr. Morrow's office and tell her that the secret to their multi-billion-dollar problem was my grandmother's flower tea. They'd laugh me out of the building. I finished my shift, my mind a million miles away, my body just going through the motions. Wipe, spray, sweep, repeat. As I clocked out, I walked past the security desk near the main entrance. 2 guards, Earl and Dennis, were talking in low voices, their eyes wide. They didn't notice me. Can you believe it? He just offered it up. In front of the whole board, Earl whispered, shaking his head. He's lost his mind, Dennis said. What was the number again? It was crazy. 850 million, Earl said, his voice full of disbelief. In company shares. To anyone at all who can solve that damn formula. I stopped breathing. The air left my lungs in a silent rush. $850 million. The crumpled paper in my pocket suddenly felt heavy, like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The eviction notice, Leo's empty medicine bottle, the ghost of my forgotten dreams, they all flashed before my eyes. It wasn't just a fantasy anymore. It was a price tag. And it was the exact price of my son's future. I walked home in a daze, the city lights blurring into long streaks of gold and white. The crumpled paper in my pocket felt like a burning coal against my leg. 850 million. The number was so big it felt fake, like something from a movie. But the eviction notice on my table was real. Leo's shallow breathing from his room was real. The ache in my own bones from years of scrubbing floors was the realest thing I knew. I spread the paper out under the dim kitchen light. The diagram of the hibiscus compound stared up at me. My grandmother's face flashed in my memory, her hands, stained with herbs, patting a poultice onto my skinned knee when I was a girl. Some things don't need to be forced, Bianca, she'd say. They just need to be invited. I couldn't sleep. The numbers from the lab and the sound of my grandmother's voice swirled in my head. I grabbed a pen and the back of Leo's old math homework. I started to draw, not with the cold precision of the scientists at Solara, but with the flow of a recipe. I drew the main compound, the one they were trying to force into shape. Then I drew the hibiscus extract, but not as an ingredient to be shoved in. I drew it circling the main structure, like a hand gently cupping a frightened bird. It didn't fight for a place. It offered support. It changed the energy of the whole system, making the other parts want to connect. It was a bridge, a peacemaker. It persuaded them. By the time the sun started to turn the sky gray, the page was filled with my own version of their formula. It was simple. So simple, I felt a knot of fear tighten in my stomach. They would think I was a fool. The next evening at work, my heart hammered against my ribs with every squeak of my cart. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just throw this away. My chance came near the end of my shift. The labs were empty except for one. Dr. Annalise Moreau was still there, sitting at her desk, her head in her hands. The sharp lines of her face were softened by exhaustion. She looked defeated. I hesitated at the door, my hand clutching the folded paper in my pocket. This was it. I cleared my throat softly. Dr. Moreau? She looked up, her eyes tired and unfocused. For a second, I don't think she even recognized me as a person, just a part of the building. What is it? She asked, her voice flat. I'm sorry to bother you, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I was just cleaning and I see the boards. I know you're all working so hard. My words felt clumsy and stupid. She sighed, rubbing her temples. We're working ourselves into a hole. That's what we're doing. Another dead end today. Donovan is going to have my head. She spoke as if I wasn't even there, just thinking out loud. This was my chance. My only chance. The bonding agent, I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. The one that keeps falling apart in the simulations. Her eyes sharpened, focusing on me for the first time. What about it? You're trying to use it like a wedge, to force a connection, I said, my courage building with each word. But what if it's not a wedge? What if its purpose is to soothe the other elements? To make them stable by calming them down, not by holding them in place. Annalise stared at me, her expression unreadable. The silence stretched on, thick and heavy. I could feel the blood pounding in my ears. I expected her to laugh, to call security, to tell me to get back to my job. Instead, she leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. What did you study? Chemistry, I whispered. A long time ago. She stood up and walked to the huge glass wall, picking up a marker. Show me, she said, her voice a command. Show me what you mean by soothe. For the next 10 minutes, I talked. I told her about my grandmother's remedies, about how she taught me that harmony was a kind of strength. I used the marker to draw my simple diagram, the one where the hibiscus compound acted as a gentle embrace rather than a lock and key. Annalise didn't say a word. She just watched, her gaze intense, following every line I drew. When I was finished, I stepped back, my whole body trembling. She stared at the board for a full minute. I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Not excitement, but a deep, calculating curiosity, as if she was looking at a puzzle she hadn't considered before. "It's an unorthodox approach," she said finally, her voice neutral. "Based on folklore." "It's based on observation," I corrected gently. She tapped the marker against her chin. "Leave your drawing. I need to think about this." It wasn't a thank you. It wasn't a promise. It was a dismissal. I nodded, gathered my cart, and left the lab, my heart a confusing mix of terror and a wild, soaring hope. Maybe, just maybe, she had listened. The next day, I came in early, my nerves shot. I couldn't stop thinking about it. As I rounded the corner to the executive wing, I heard voices coming from the main conference room. The door was slightly ajar. I recognized the deep, booming voice of the CEO, Donovan Black, and the sharp, precise tone of Dr. Morrow. I shouldn't have listened. I should have kept walking. But my feet felt like they were nailed to the floor. And so, by altering the application of the primary agent, Annalise was saying, we stop thinking of it as a bonding mechanism and start treating it as a stabilizing one. A sort of chemical peacemaker. My breath caught in my throat. Those were my words. A peacemaker? Donovan Black's voice was skeptical. Annalise, what is this poetry? Does it work? The preliminary models are promising, she said. It was a late-night breakthrough. My team and I were re-examining the destabilizing effects when we considered an entirely new paradigm. My team. The words hit me like a physical blow. The air rushed out of my lungs. She stood there, in a room full of powerful people, taking my idea, my grandmother's wisdom, my desperate hope scrawled on the back of a piece of homework, and calling it her own. The hope that had carried me through the night shattered into a million tiny pieces. I was invisible. I was the help. And she had taken the only thing I had left. I stood there, frozen in the hallway, the sound of their voices fading behind the heavy wood of the conference room door. My team. The words echoed in the empty space where my hope had been. A bitter taste filled my mouth. It was always like this. People like me were meant to be backstage, cleaning up the mess while others took the bows. I should have turned around. I should have pushed my cart back to the supply closet, clocked out, and gone home to the reality of my eviction notice. That was my world. This one, the one with breakthroughs and boardrooms, was never meant for me. My hand went to my pocket, but the crumpled paper was gone. I'd left it on Annalise's desk. My proof. My one little piece of a dream. And then I thought of Leo, his small body curled up at his bed, his breath catching in his sleep. I thought of the fear in his eyes when he asked if we'd have to move again. In that moment, something inside me snapped. It wasn't about the money, not really. It was about the crushing weight of being invisible, of having my voice, my mind, my grandmother's legacy, erased as easily as a smudge on a window. No. Not this time. My feet moved before my mind could argue. I pushed the conference room door open. It swung inward with a soft, expensive sigh, and every head in the room turned toward me. A dozen pairs of eyes, all belonging to men and women in sharp suits, landed on my faded blue uniform. The air crackled with a shocked silence. At the head of the long, polished table sat Donovan Black. He was even more imposing in person, a man who seemed to take up all the space in the room just by breathing. His gaze locked onto me, not with anger, but with a sharp, questioning curiosity. Annalise stood near the front, her back rigid. Her face went pale when she saw me. "Can I help you?" Donovan Black's voice was deep, with the lilting rhythm of his Jamaican home still in it. It wasn't unkind, but it was a clear dismissal. My own voice came out shaky, but clear. "You were talking about a chemical peacemaker." I looked directly at Annalise. My words, a ripple of murmurs went through the room. Annalise took a step forward, her composure cracking for just a second. "This is a private meeting. She's mistaken." "Am I?" I asked, my eyes never leaving hers. "You called the hibiscus extract a dead end. I found your note in the trash. I'm the one who told you to treat it like an embrace, not a wedge. I'm the one who drew the diagram on your wall." Donovan Black leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. The amused glint in his eye was gone, replaced by an intense focus that made my skin prickle. Is this true, Annalise? Annalise's jaw was tight. She looked from me to the stone-faced board members, then back to Donovan. I could see the calculation in her eyes, the quick-thinking mind that had gotten her this far. It's more complicated than that, she said, her voice strained. Her observations were an interesting catalyst, but they were unscientific, based on folk remedies. My team and I took that raw concept and spent all night translating it into a viable, testable model. She was trying to box me in, to reduce my idea to a quaint little story, while she claimed the real work. She's lying, I said, the words tasting like metal. And you're the janitor. One of the board members scoffed, a man with a gray, pinched face. You expect us to believe you solved a problem that a team of PhDs couldn't? The humiliation was a hot flush on my cheeks. But Leo's face was clearer in my mind. I have a degree in chemistry, I said, looking right at the man. I just couldn't afford the career that came with it. Donovan Black slammed his hand flat on the table. The sound made everyone jump. The room fell completely silent. He stood up slowly, his eyes sweeping from my worn-out shoes to my determined face. He wasn't looking at a janitor anymore. He was looking at someone he recognized. I started my first business selling phone cards on a street corner in Kingston, he said, his voice low and powerful. People in suits laughed at me every single day. They said I didn't belong. They said I was a joke. He walked around the table until he was standing in front of me and Annalise. So, I have very little patience for people who judge a mind by the clothes it wears. He looked at Annalise. And even less for people who would steal a thought and call it their own. Annalise flinched, as if he'd slapped her. Donovan, I was trying to save us. She burst out, her voice raw with a desperation I hadn't expected. They, she gestured to the board, would have thrown her idea out without a second thought because of who she is. I had to own it to make them listen. I was going to cut her in, I swear it. But I had to get it through this room first. Her reasoning hit me with a confusing force. It wasn't right, but in the cold, harsh light of that room, I understood the fear that drove her. I could almost believe her. Donovan was silent for a long moment, studying us both. I see, he said finally. He turned to me. You want the $850 million? The shares I promised. I swallowed hard. I want what's mine. I want credit for my work. Fair enough, he said with a sharp nod. But claims are easy. Proof is hard. He pointed towards the massive glass wall that looked down into the main research lab. The model is one thing. A stable, working liquid is another. You say the idea is yours. Dr. Moreau says she made it viable. I say, prove it. My heart stopped. What do you mean? I mean you two, he said, looking back and forth between us, are going to work together.
Right now.
You will go down to that lab, and you will produce a stable sample based on this peacemaker theory. The whole board will watch. My head of security will be your only company. No outside help. No team. Annalise looked horrified. Donovan, that's impossible. It could take weeks. You have until morning, he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. You get one shot. If you succeed, we split the shares between the two of you, and the company is saved. If you fail, he let the words hang in the air. If you fail, the company goes under, and you both leave with nothing. Dr. Moreau, you're fired for your deception. And you, he said, turning to me, his expression unreadable, go back to your cart. It wasn't a choice. It was a cliff. I looked at Annalise. Her face was a mask of fury and fear. She was brilliant, but she was rigid by the book. I was intuitive, but I hadn't been in a real lab in over a decade. We were oil and water, and he was telling us to mix. We were being set up to fail. But as I looked past them, through the glass at the gleaming, state-of-the-art lab below, I didn't feel despair. I felt a fire light in my chest. This was my world. I had been locked out of it for too long. Fine, I said. The single word cut through the tension. Annalise stared at me, shocked. Donovan Black smiled, a true, brilliant smile that reached his eyes for the first time. It changed his whole face. "Good," he said. "Then, let's begin." The heavy glass door clicked shut behind us, and the sound echoed in the sudden, sterile silence. The lab was a cage of steel and light. Through the massive window high on one wall, I could see the silhouettes of the board members, watching us like we were fish in a tank. Annalise didn't look at me. She walked straight to the main workstation, her movements sharp and angry. She was a cornered animal, and I was the one who had trapped her here. "We'll start with my last simulation model," she said, not a request, but an order. She tapped furiously on a screen, bringing up charts and graphs that swam before my eyes. "We'll introduce the hibiscus compound at the initial stage, measure the catalytic reaction, and adjust the thermal pressure in increments of 5 degrees. I shook my head. "That's not going to work, Dr. Morrow. You're still treating it like a hammer." "My name is Annalise," she snapped, her eyes flashing. "And I have a doctorate in this field. You have a mop. We will do this my way." She didn't wait for my answer. She moved with a cold efficiency, measuring powders and liquids into beakers with hands that never trembled. I just stood back and watched. The security guard, a large man named Frank, stood by the door, his arms crossed, his face unreadable. He was our jailer. Annalise worked for nearly an hour, her brow furrowed in concentration. She was brilliant, I couldn't deny that. Every move was precise, calculated, and perfectly executed according to her data. Finally, she slid the main beaker into the containment chamber. She pressed a button. Inside the chamber, the clear liquid swirled. For a moment, it glowed with a soft, promising light. Then it sputtered. The mixture turned a murky brown, like dirty dishwater. A red light flashed on her console, and a low buzzing sound filled the lab. Failure. Annalise stared at the screen, her perfect composure finally breaking. Her shoulders slumped, and she let out a shaky breath. She had thrown all her knowledge at the problem, and it had thrown it right back in her face. A speaker crackled to life on the wall. "Status report." It was Donovan Black's voice, calm and deep, cutting through the tension. Annalise froze. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. The silence stretched. My own heart was pounding. This was my moment. I stepped forward, close to the microphone on the console. "The direct fusion approach failed, Mr. Black," I said, my voice steady. "It destabilized the primary agent, just like it did in all your other tests." There was a pause. I could feel Annalise's glare burning into the side of my head. "And what's your solution, Ms. Gibson?" he asked. His use of my name, so formal and respectful, felt like a shield. "My grandmother never threw all her herbs into the pot at once," I said, thinking of her warm kitchen. She waited for the water to get angry before she added the things that would calm it down. I looked at Annalise. "We have to introduce the hibiscus compound when the reaction is at its most violent, not at the beginning. It needs something to soothe." Annalise let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "That's your scientific method? A recipe from your grandmother? Your method gave us sludge," I said quietly. "What do we have to lose by trying mine?" She stared at me, her mind racing behind her tired eyes. She knew I was right. She had nowhere else to go. Without another word, she turned and began cleaning the equipment. It was the only surrender she was willing to give me. This time, we worked together. I told her when to increase the temperature, when to agitate the mixture. She translated my instincts into precise measurements. The lab became a strange dance of her clinical skill and my intuitive rhythm. Finally, it was time. The mixture was churning, an angry, chaotic swirl inside the beaker. "Now," I whispered. With a steady hand, Annalise slowly piped the deep red hibiscus extract into the chamber. For a second, nothing happened. Then, like magic, the chaos began to subside. The violent churning softened. The murky color faded, replaced by a clear, steady liquid that pulsed with a warm, golden light. It was stable. It was beautiful. We both stared, breathless. A soft smile touched Annalise's lips. She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of real respect in her eyes. "You were right," she murmured. Above us, in the boardroom, the shadows were moving excitedly. We could hear a muffled sound that might have been applause. A wave of relief, so powerful it made my knees weak, washed over me. We had done it. We were going to be okay. Now for the final test, Annalise said, her voice full of a new energy. The energy output. This has to be off the charts to secure the investors. She moved to a different counter to grab a secondary catalyst, a standard lithium variant. As she turned back, her elbow caught a small, unlabeled vial of clear liquid sitting near the edge. It tipped over, spilling its contents on the counter, just inches from our precious beaker. "Oh, clumsy me," she cried, grabbing a cloth. "Just distilled water, for cleaning. Let me get that." She wiped it up so quickly, so efficiently, that I barely had time to register it. My mind was still buzzing with our success. She placed the main beaker into the energy reader and started the sequence. We watched the monitor, waiting for the numbers to climb. And they climbed, past our highest expectations, past what should have been theoretically possible. The numbers on the screen were astronomical. The speaker crackled again. My God, Donovan's voice was filled with a joy and relief that was so pure it hurt to hear. "You've done it. You've actually done it." Annalise beamed, a wide, triumphant smile. But I couldn't smile. Something was wrong. The golden glow in the beaker had a faint green tint to it now, a color that shouldn't have been there. A low hum was coming from the machine, a vibration I could feel in the soles of my shoes. My eyes darted back to the counter she had just wiped, then to the chemical supply cabinet. My blood ran cold. I walked over to it and scanned the inventory list on the door. There was one compound, a military-grade accelerant, that was strictly forbidden in our research. It was volatile, unpredictable, and highly illegal for commercial use. Next to its name was a small, red tag, in use. The spilled vial wasn't water. Annalise hadn't trusted my method to be enough. She needed a home run, a miracle, so she added a cheat. She had turned our solution into a bomb. My gaze shot to the pressure gauge on the containment unit. The needle, so small I hadn't noticed it before, was creeping steadily into the red zone. I looked at Annalise. She was staring at the monitor, her face flushed with victory, refusing to look at me. Then I looked up at the glass window, at Donovan Black, celebrating a triumph that was about to blow up in all of our faces. And he had no idea. My mind screamed. The little red needle was like a ticking clock, counting down to disaster. Annalise saw me looking at the gauge, and for a split second, a flicker of panic crossed her face before she masked it with a triumphant glare. She thought she had won. She thought I would just stand there and let her burn the whole building down around us. But she didn't know the fire I'd been walking through my whole life. I didn't have time to explain. I didn't have time to argue. I lunged past her and slammed my hand down on the big red emergency stop button on the wall. A terrible siren blared through the lab, and the golden glow in the beaker instantly died. The humming stopped. All the screens went black, except for one that flashed. Emergency purge initiated. A hiss of fire-suppressing gas filled the containment chamber. We were plunged into the eerie quiet of failure, the only light coming from the red emergency strobes flashing across our faces. Annalise stared at me, her mouth open in a silent scream of fury. "What have you done?" she finally choked out, her voice a venomous whisper. "You ruined it. We had it. We had a bomb." I shot back, my whole body trembling. "That wasn't water you spilled, was it?" "It was the X7 accelerant. The one that's forbidden." Her face went white. Before she could answer, the lab door flew open and Donovan Black stormed in, his face a thundercloud. The board members crowded behind him, their expressions a mix of confusion and anger. "Report," he demanded, his voice echoing off the tile walls. "What the hell just happened?" Annalise pointed a shaking finger at me. "She did it. She sabotaged the test. The numbers were perfect, better than perfect, and she just shut it all down. She's trying to take all the credit, all the money for herself." The gray-faced board member from before sneered. "I knew it.
You can't trust people like that."
The words hit me, but the injustice of it all gave me a strange, cold calm. All eyes were on me. They saw a janitor who had gotten in over her head, a greedy woman who had destroyed their last hope. They didn't see the truth. They didn't see me, but maybe it was time they did. Time he did. I looked past them all, my eyes locking with Donovan's. The anger in his gaze was mixed with a deep, crushing disappointment. He had given me a chance, and he thought I had thrown it away. "She's lying, Mr. Black," I said, my voice quiet but firm. She used an illegal catalyst to fake the results. The pressure in the chamber was critical. It was about to explode. "And I suppose you have proof?" Annalise challenged, her confidence returning. "Or is this another one of your grandmother's stories?" This was it, the cliff's edge. I had to jump. "I do have proof," I said, my gaze never leaving Donovan's. "It's the same proof I've had since the day you hired me. The same proof I've been hiding since I first saw your face on the news." I took a deep breath. "Donnie, do you remember the hibiscus tea my grandmother used to make for us? On her porch back in Trenchtown? The binder of spirits, she called it. She only made it for us when you'd scraped your knees running from Mr. Henderson's dog." The world stopped. The name no one had called him in 20 years, hung in the air between us. The anger on Donovan's face melted away, replaced by a deep, profound shock. His eyes widened, really seeing me for the first time. Not Bianca the janitor, but B. The girl with scraped knees of her own. The girl who shared mangoes with him under a tin roof. The girl he had left behind. The board members looked back and forth between us, their mouths hanging open. Annalise looked like she'd been turned to stone. Every moment of the past few weeks replayed in my mind, but now in a blinding new light. His challenge to the board wasn't just a desperate act. He had seen me on the security cameras. He recognized me. The whole thing, the $850 million, the impossible offer, it was a test. A message aimed right at me. He was asking if the girl he knew was still in there. He took a slow step towards me, his eyes searching my face. "B," he whispered, the sound full of a pain and a hope so old it was almost holy. "It is you. I knew it. I saw your application when you were hired. I was waiting. I was waiting for you to just say something." It felt like the whole world was holding its breath. He was just inches from me now, and the sterile lab faded away. I could almost smell the Jamaican rain and hear the sound of dominoes slapping on a wooden table. He reached out and gently touched my cheek, his thumb brushing away a tear I didn't even know had fallen. It was a moment of pure, impossible connection. A lifetime of hurt and distance was closing. He was here. I was here. We had found each other. "She's not telling you everything, Donovan." Annalise's voice was sharp, cutting through the silence, like a shard of glass. She had nothing left to lose, and her eyes held the cruel glint of a scorpion's sting. Donovan didn't even look at her. "Get out, Annalise," he said, his voice a low growl. "You're finished." "Not yet," she said, a bitter smile twisting her lips. "I saved this company." I translated her little fairy tale into science. "And you're just going to throw me out for the girl you left behind?" She took a step closer, her voice dropping, becoming more poisonous. "Before you do, maybe you should ask her why she really came here. Ask her why she's so desperate for your money. Ask her about your son, Donovan." The air left my body. The floor seemed to drop out from under me.
No.
No, she couldn't. I had guarded that secret like it was the last flame in a hurricane. I stared at her, pleading with my eyes, but she just stared back, her expression one of cold, final victory. Donovan's hand dropped from my face. He turned his head slowly, looking at me as if I were a complete stranger. The warmth in his eyes was gone, replaced by a dawning, terrible confusion. "My son," he repeated, the words clumsy in his mouth. My throat was closed. I couldn't speak. I could only shake my head, a useless, silent denial. "Leo," Annalise said, savoring each syllable. "That's his name, isn't it, Bianca? He's about 6 years old, I think. Sickly little boy. It's all in her personnel file. I saw the insurance claims. Funny, the math works out perfectly, doesn't it?" Donovan's face, which had just been filled with a rediscovered love, became a mask of ice. The betrayal that washed over him was a physical force, so powerful it pushed me back a step. He looked at me, at my cheap uniform, at the shame and terror on my face. He looked at me and saw a liar, a manipulator. He believed every word. He believed I had hidden his own child from him, let him get sick while I scrubbed floors, only to show up now as part of some long, cruel plan to get his money. The intimacy we had shared just moments before curdled into something ugly and monstrous. "Is it true?" he asked, his voice dead. I finally found my breath, but it came out as a ragged sob. "Yes," I whispered, "but it's not what you think. I was going to tell you." He held up a hand, cutting me off. The gesture was more violent than a slap. He didn't want to hear it. He had already judged me, and the sentence was life. "You let my son," he said, the words heavy with a disgust that ripped my heart to shreds, "my son, grow up sick and poor, while I built all this. You watched me on television, and you kept him from me?" He let out a harsh, broken laugh. "And you want my money? You want what's yours?" He stepped back, away from me, as if I were something diseased. He turned to the security guard who had been watching the whole scene in stunned silence. "Frank," Donovan said, his voice flat and empty of all emotion. "Escort Ms. Gibson off the premises. She's no longer an employee here. Make sure she doesn't take anything with her." Frank's hand on my arm was gentle, but it felt like a shackle. It was the final, quiet click of a lock turning, sealing me out forever. My legs wouldn't move. They were rooted to the spot, two pillars of stone in a world that was crumbling around me. I could feel the eyes of the board members on my back, hot and sharp. They weren't looking at a person. They were looking at a stain being removed from their clean, white world. I risked a glance at Annalise. There was no joy in her face, only a hollow, brittle emptiness. She had won, but it looked like it had cost her everything. My eyes found Donovan. He stood like a statue carved from grief, his back to me, staring at the blank screens of the lab. He wouldn't even look at me. The man who had touched my face with such tenderness just minutes ago now acted as if I didn't exist. "Please," I whispered, the sound getting lost in the cavernous room. Frank's grip tightened slightly, a silent command to move. "Donnie, just listen to me. Please." He turned then, and the look on his face was worse than any anger. It was a cold, dead calm, the kind that comes after a hurricane has passed and torn everything you love to pieces. The light in his eyes was gone. "There is nothing left to say, Bianca," he said, his voice flat. He was Mr. Black again. The CEO. The stranger. "It wasn't like that," I pleaded, my voice cracking, tears finally blurring the sharp edges of the room. "I was scared. I didn't want you to think. I didn't want to be a woman with her hand out. I wanted to do it on my own." A sound that was almost a laugh, but with no humor in it, escaped his lips. "On your own." He took a step toward me, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous growl that was meant only for me. "You let my son sleep in a place with peeling paint and eat cheap food while I lived like a king? Did you look at his face every morning and see a winning lottery ticket you were saving for the right time? Did you enjoy the power of knowing you had a secret that could break me?" Every word was a punch to my gut, knocking the air out of my lungs. He was twisting my pride, my fear, my love for my son, into something ugly and monstrous. He was painting me as a villain in a story I never wanted to write.
No, Ishubat.
He's my son. I love him. I was ashamed. "You should be," he said, his voice like ice. "You stole 6 years of his life from me. 6 years I will never get back. There is no amount of money in the world that can pay for that. Not even 850 million. He turned away from me, his shoulders rigid. "Get her out of my sight, Frank." That was it. The final door slamming shut. Frank guided me out of the lab.
I didn't resist this time.
There was nothing left to fight for. As we walked down the gleaming hallway, the silence was broken only by the squeak of my worn-out shoes on the polished floor. It was a poor person's sound in a rich person's world. We passed the conference room where this nightmare had begun, and I felt like a ghost haunting the scene of my own death. Frank led me to the small employee locker room in the building's basement. The air down here was different, thick with the smell of cleaning supplies and damp concrete. It was my world. He stood by the door, giving me a small amount of privacy. His face was unreadable, but there was no malice in it. He was just a man doing his job. I fumbled with the key to my locker, my hands shaking so badly it took 3 tries to get it in the lock. The metal door swung open with a familiar creak. Inside was my life. My thin coat, a squashed granola bar for the bus ride home, and my worn-out purse. I reached inside the purse, and my fingers found the smooth plastic of my wallet. I pulled it out and opened it to the picture I always kept tucked inside. It was Leo, taken last summer at the park. He was smiling, a gap where his 2 front teeth used to be, his eyes full of a light that I felt was my job to protect. And I had failed. The full weight of what had just happened crashed down on me. I didn't just lose a job. I lost the only hope I'd had in years. The eviction notice was still on my kitchen table. The empty bottle of medicine was still on my counter. Tomorrow, Leo would wake up and ask me if everything was okay, and for the first time in his life, I would have to lie to his face. Because nothing was okay. I had gambled his future on a ghost from my past, and I had lost everything. A dry, ragged sob tore through me, and I leaned my forehead against the cold metal of the locker, the picture of my son pressed against my heart. What had I done? Donovan was right. I had let my foolish pride keep a father from a son. I told myself I was protecting Leo, but maybe I was just protecting myself from the pain of rejection, from the fear that Donovan wouldn't want us. And now, my greatest fear had come true, and I had dragged my innocent son down with me. I gathered my things, my movements slow and heavy, as if I were moving through water. I slung my purse over my shoulder and put on my coat. Frank held the door for me, and we walked the final stretch to the main exit. The lobby was empty now, the bright lights making everything feel sterile and unreal. As we reached the massive glass doors, Frank stopped. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said, his voice low. It was the first time anyone had spoken to me with kindness in what felt like a lifetime. I could only nod, my throat too tight to speak. The automatic doors slid open, and a rush of cold night air hit my face. It felt like a slap. I stepped out of the building and onto the dark, empty sidewalk. The doors slid shut behind me, the sound of final, soft goodbye. I turned and looked up at the towering building of glass and steel. The Solara logo glowed against the night sky, a bright beacon of a future that no longer included me. Through the lobby windows, I could see Donovan. He was standing alone in the middle of the vast, empty space, a solitary figure in his own kingdom. He wasn't looking at the door. He was just staring into nothing, lost and broken. We were 2 people from the same small town, now separated by a wall of glass and a world of pain. I had his son. He had my heart, and we were both completely, utterly alone. The walk home was a long, cold dream. I didn't take the bus. My feet just moved, one in front of the other, carrying me through streets that felt alien and sharp. Each streetlight that passed over me felt like an interrogation lamp, exposing the fool I had been. Donovan's words played over and over in my head, a cruel loop of my own failure. Did you look at his face every morning and see a winning lottery ticket? The accusation was a poison, seeping into all the good memories, tainting them. It wasn't just that he was wrong, it was that he could believe it so easily. He could look at me, the bee he once knew, and see a monster. Maybe he was right. Maybe my pride was a kind of poison, too. I had kept his son from him. And for what? To avoid looking like a charity case? To prove a point to a world that didn't care? The weight of those 6 years of silence pressed down on my shoulders, heavier than any eviction notice, more crushing than any debt. I had built a wall of pride around myself and Leo, and I had just discovered it was a prison. When I finally reached my building, the key felt clumsy in my hand. The apartment was dark and colder than the street outside. The first thing I saw was the pink paper on the kitchen table, a glaring monument to my failure. I ignored it and went straight to Leo's room. The little nightlight cast a soft glow on his face. He was curled on his side, his small chest rising and falling with a shallow rhythm that always scared me. I knelt by his bed and gently brushed his hair off his forehead. It was damp with sweat. His skin was too warm. As if he felt my presence, he stirred, and a small, dry cough escaped his lips. It was a weak sound, but it ripped through the silence of the apartment like a gunshot. It was the sound of everything that mattered. The world outside that room, with its board members and billion-dollar formulas, simply vanished. Donovan's anger, Annalise's betrayal, my own shattered heart, none of it mattered. All that existed was that small, rattling sound in my son's chest. The empty medicine bottle on the counter wasn't a symbol of my poverty anymore. It was a weapon pointed at my child. The eviction notice wasn't a threat to my home. It was a threat to his life, to the only stability he had ever known. I had been so caught up in the pain of my own story, the injustice of it all, that I had lost sight of the only truth that counted. This wasn't about my pride. It was never about my pride. It was about him. I went back to the kitchen and sat at the table, the picture of Leo from my wallet in my hand. I looked from his smiling face to the screaming red letters of the notice. For 6 years, my fear had been a quiet companion. Fear of being judged, fear of being a burden, fear of Donovan not wanting us. That fear had told me to be small, to be quiet, to be invisible. It had whispered that I was doing the right thing, that I was protecting my son by hiding him away. But looking at his picture now, I saw that my fear was a liar. It hadn't protected him. It had endangered him. It had kept him from a father who, for all his anger, would have moved heaven and earth to keep him safe. It had kept him from the medicine he needed, from a life where his mother wasn't always one missed paycheck away from disaster. The fear had cost me everything, and I was done paying. Something inside me shifted. It wasn't a snap. It was a slow, tectonic groan, the sound of a mountain moving. The shame that had been my shadow for so long began to burn away, replaced by a cold, clear fire. I wasn't the girl with scraped knees anymore, and I wasn't the invisible woman who cleaned up other people's messes. I was Leo's mother, and a mother's love is not a quiet thing. It is a roar. I stood up, my body feeling light for the first time all night. I put the picture of Leo back in my wallet, grabbed my purse, and walked out the door, leaving the eviction notice to glare at an empty room. The journey back to Solara was different. I wasn't drifting anymore. Every step was a decision. Every streetlight I passed was a spotlight I was walking into willingly. I was going back to claim something, but it wasn't the money or the job. It was my son's future. It was Donovan's chance to be a father. I would swallow my pride until I choked on it if it meant Leo would be okay. I would stand on his doorstep and beg. I would let him yell at me for 1,000 years. I would become whatever he needed me to be, a villain, a fool, a ghost, as long as Leo got to be a son. When the building came into view, its lights cutting through the darkness, my heart didn't pound with fear. It beat with a steady, powerful rhythm. The glass doors were locked now, sealing the bright, empty lobby away from the dark street. And there he was,
Donovan.
He wasn't standing tall and powerful like a CEO. He was slumped in one of the low chairs, his head in his hands, a man utterly alone in a monument to his own success. He looked up as I approached the glass, and I saw his face harden. He stood up, a clear warning in his posture.
He wouldn't let me in.
This was his final wall. I didn't yell. I didn't bang on the door. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I simply took out my wallet, opened it, and pulled out the small, worn picture of our son. I held it up and pressed it flat against the cold glass, my fingers framing his smiling, gap-toothed face. I just stood there, letting the picture do all the talking.
This isn't about me, it said.
Asterisk, it isn't about you, or the past, or all the pain we caused each other. It's about him. Just look at him. Asterisk. Donovan froze. He stared at the picture, at the image of the little boy he had never known. I could see the war happening in his eyes. The anger fought with a grief, so profound it was breathtaking. The pride fought with a love that had been denied for 6 long years. He took a step closer to the glass, his eyes fixed on the photograph. He saw the curve of his own smile in Leo's. He saw the light in his eyes that he remembered from his own childhood. The ice in his face didn't just melt, it shattered. A raw, ragged breath escaped his lips, fogging the glass between us. The CEO was gone. All that was left was a father, seeing his son for the very first time. He looked from the picture to my face, and his eyes were filled with a universe of questions. Slowly, as if it weighed 1,000 pounds, he lifted his hand and walked toward the door. The lock clicked, a small, sharp sound in the vast silence of the night. The heavy glass door swung inward, and the cold air from the street followed me inside. Donovan stood there, his powerful frame looking smaller than I had ever seen it. The anger was gone, but what replaced it was worse. It was a raw, hollowed-out grief, the kind that leaves a man looking like a stranger in his own skin.
He didn't speak.
He just stared at the picture in my hand, then at my face, as if trying to solve an impossible puzzle. His eyes were red-rimmed, and for the first time, I saw the boy from Trenchtown again, the boy who hid his tears behind a wall of bravado. "I didn't come back for the money, Donnie," I said, my voice barely a whisper. The name felt strange now, a key to a life we had both left behind. "I came back for him." He flinched, the words landing like stones. "Why?" he asked, his voice rough and broken. "Why would you hide my son from me?" "For 6 years, Bianca. 6 years." "Because I was a coward," I said, the truth feeling like sandpaper in my throat. I let the picture of Leo fall to my side. I had to face him without a shield. "When I found out I was pregnant, you were already gone. You were on the news, your picture in the papers. You were becoming this." I gestured vaguely at the towering lobby, at the name of his company glowing on the wall. "And I was still just B from the lane, with nothing to my name but a bus ticket and a belly full of your child. I was so afraid. Afraid you'd think I was trapping you, that I was just another girl from the old neighborhood with her hand out. So, I told myself I could do it alone. I told myself it was pride.
But it wasn't pride, Donnie.
It was fear. It was a fear so big it ate me alive." My confession hung in the air between us, plain and ugly. I offered no excuses, only the broken pieces of my reasoning. I saw a flicker of something behind his eyes, a dawning understanding that felt like the first ray of sun after a long, cold night. He had built this entire empire on his own fear. The fear of being poor, the fear of going back, the fear of being that boy on the street corner again. He knew the taste of it. He knew how it could make you build walls so high you couldn't even see the people you were trying to protect. From the shadows near the entrance to the labs, a figure stepped forward. Annalise. Her face was pale, her usual sharp confidence gone, replaced by a weary desperation. "Don't listen to her, Donovan," she said, her voice strained. "It's a performance. She's playing on your past to get what she wants." Donovan didn't even turn to look at her. His eyes were locked on mine, and in them, I saw him making a choice. Not between me and Annalise, but between the man he had become and the boy he used to be. "Did you know about the illegal accelerant?" he asked her, his voice dangerously quiet. Annalise froze. I was trying to save the company. The numbers had to be undeniable. "You were willing to let this whole place blow up," he said, the words cutting through the air. "Just a win." He finally turned his head, and the look he gave her was not of anger, but of a deep, sorrowful pity. "That's the difference between you and her." She shut it all down, willing to lose everything because she knew it was a bomb. "You lit the fuse." He looked back at me. She was trying to save all of us. He took a step closer to me, closing the last bit of distance. "I owe you an apology, Bianca," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "For not seeing you, for letting my own pride blind me." He reached out, not to touch me, but to gently take the picture of Leo from my hand. He stared at it, his thumb tracing the outline of our son's smiling face. A single tear tracked down his cheek and fell onto the photograph. "There's something else you need to know," he said, looking up from the picture, his gaze steady and clear. "The offer. The $850 million. My heart sank. I thought I knew what was coming. He was going to tell me it was off the table, that I didn't deserve it. It wasn't real, he said softly. The board members, who had crept back into the lobby to watch the drama unfold, let out a collective gasp. The company was a week from being sold for parts. The investors were gone. The offer, it was a bluff. A desperate, last-ditch story I told to buy my people a few more days of hope. It was a prayer whispered into a hurricane. I had nothing left to give. The truth of it hit me with a shocking clarity. It wasn't a prize I had been fighting for. It was a lifeline he had been praying for. My simple, little solution, born from my grandmother's kitchen, hadn't just won me a fortune. It had saved him from ruin. It had made his desperate bluff real. The victory wasn't about the money. It was about the fact that our shared past, the wisdom of the place we both came from, was the very thing that had built our future. The hibiscus tea my grandmother made for our scraped knees had just healed a wound big enough to save a company and 1,000 jobs. Donovan turned to face the stunned board members, his voice ringing with a new authority, a strength that came not from his wealth, but from his truth. Bianca Gibson solved the formula. Her method works. It is elegant, stable, and it will change the world. She did it not for money, but because it was the right thing to do. He looked at me, a silent promise passing between us. The shares are hers. All of them. As for the value, after this discovery, it will be worth more than any of us ever dreamed. He then looked at Annalise. And Dr. Morrow, your work here is done. But you won't be leaving with nothing. Your name will be on the patent alongside Bianca's. You translated her idea. That deserves recognition. But you will never hold a leadership position here again. You need to learn that true vision isn't about winning. It's about creating something that lasts. Annalise simply nodded, the fight gone from her eyes. It was a strange kind of mercy, one she didn't expect, and it seemed to break her more than any punishment could have. She turned and walked away, not a villain, just a brilliant woman who had lost her way. Donovan faced me again, the noise and the politics of the room fading away until it was just the two of us. The glass between us was gone, and so were the years of silence. We were no longer a CEO and a janitor. We were Donnie and Bea, two kids from a dusty lane who had found their way back to each other in the most impossible way. He carefully handed the picture of Leo back to me, as if it were the most valuable thing on earth. He has my mother's eyes, he whispered, his voice full of wonder. I smiled through my tears. He has your stubborn chin. He was quiet for a long moment, the entire future hanging in that silent space. Then he looked at me, his eyes full of a hope so fragile and so powerful it made my heart ache. Can I meet him? He asked. Can I meet my son? The question was the real prize. It was the only thing that had ever truly mattered. The money, the company, the formula, they were just a complicated, winding road that had finally led us back home. Yes, Donnie, I said, my voice finally steady and sure. It's time for him to meet his father. The ride to my apartment was the quietest car ride I'd ever been in. It was a nice car, the kind that smelled like new leather and hummed instead of rattled, but the silence inside was thick with everything we weren't saying. 6 years of birthdays, skinned knees, and bedtime stories. 6 years of board meetings, lonely dinners, and building an empire. It was a ghost that sat in the empty space between us. Donovan drove, his hands tight on the steering wheel. He wasn't the powerful CEO anymore. He looked like a man on his way to the most important meeting of his life, and he had no idea what to do. I gave him directions, my voice calm and steady. The fire that had burned in my chest all night had settled into a warm, quiet glow. The fear was gone. Whatever happened next, we would face it together, and that was a truth so new and so powerful it felt like it could hold up the world. When we walked into my building, the smell of stale cooking and disinfectant hit us. I saw Donovan's jaw tighten. He was used to places that smelled of money and success. This was the smell of just getting by. He didn't say a word as we climbed the 3 flights of stairs, the sound of our footsteps echoing in the narrow hall. I unlocked my door, the same lock I had fumbled with just hours ago, my hands shaking with despair. Now they were steady. I pushed the door open and stepped aside to let him in. He hesitated for a second on the threshold, as if crossing into a world he didn't belong in. Then he stepped inside. The apartment was small and clean, but there was no hiding the worn-out furniture or the crack that ran like a lightning bolt across the ceiling. He took it all in. The stack of library books on the coffee table, Leo's slightly lopsided drawings of robots taped to the refrigerator, the faded blanket draped over the arm of the couch. This was the landscape of his son's entire life. He walked over to the fridge and gently touched the edge of a drawing. "He's a good artist," he said, his voice thick. "Yes," I said. "He is." It was a simple exchange, but it felt massive. It was the first normal thing a parent had said to another parent. It was a beginning. From the little bedroom, a small cough broke the silence. Donovan's head snapped up, his eyes wide with a mix of terror and hope. "He's awake," I said softly. I walked to the bedroom door and pushed it open. Leo was sitting up in his bed, the little nightlight making his face look pale and small. "Mommy," he whispered, his voice raspy. "I'm here, baby," I said, going to his side and feeling his forehead. It was burning hot. "My throat hurts." Donovan stood in the doorway, a giant frozen in place. He looked so out of place in the small room, his expensive suit a stark contrast to the superhero-themed bedsheets. Leo looked past me and saw him. He wasn't scared, just curious. He looked at Donovan's dark skin, at his kind, sad eyes, and then he looked at me. His gaze moved back and forth between us, his little mind working.
He saw the same chin,
The same shape of the eyes. He didn't need an explanation. Children understand the things that matter. "Is he my dad?" Leo asked, his voice a tiny thread of sound. The question hit Donovan like a physical blow. I saw his shoulders slump, the weight of those 6 years finally crashing down on him. All he could do was nod, his throat too tight for words. I felt a new kind of urgency. This wasn't about our past anymore. It was about Leo's present. "His fever is worse," I said to Donovan, my voice clear and direct. "The medicine I have isn't working anymore. He needs something stronger, but I can't." I didn't have to finish the sentence. He understood. The man of action, the problem solver, finally had a problem he could fix. He pulled out his phone, his fingers moving with a speed and purpose that I had seen in the boardroom. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't make demands. He just spoke with a quiet, unbreakable authority. "I need Dr. Evans at the Children's Memorial West Wing. Tell him I'm on my way. I have my son with me." He listened for a moment. "I don't care. Clear it." He hung up and looked at me. "We're leaving."
right now.
"We're going to the best hospital, and they're going to make him better." It wasn't a promise. It was a fact. It was the sound of a father taking care of his child. As I bundled Leo up in his thickest blanket, Donovan stood by the kitchen table. His eyes landed on the pink eviction notice, still lying there like a scar. I saw a flash of pain, of deep regret, cross his face. He walked over, picked it up, and without looking at it, he folded it into a neat, small square and slipped it into his pocket. He was taking my burden, my shame, and making it disappear. He didn't replace it with anything. He just cleared the space. He cleared the way for a new story. He was erasing the past, not by ignoring it, but by taking responsibility for it. He then gently took the blanket-wrapped bundle that was our son from my arms. Leo, weak with fever, barely stirred. He just leaned his head against Donovan's chest, a place he had never been before, but a place his soul seemed to recognize. For a moment, Donovan just stood there, holding his son, his eyes closed, memorizing the weight and warmth of him. The sight was so beautiful and so painful it stole the breath from my lungs. It was everything I had been so afraid of, and it was everything I had ever wanted. As we walked out, the door closing behind us on the life I had known, I saw a taxi pulling away from the curb down the street. In the back seat, I could just make out Annalise's silhouette. She didn't look back. She was just a woman heading into a new, uncertain future, just like me. I didn't feel anger or victory, just a quiet sadness for the path she had chosen. We all had choices to make. Down on the street, Donovan carefully secured Leo into the back seat of his car. When he closed the door, he turned to me. The streetlights cast long shadows, but I could see his face clearly. The hard lines of the CEO were gone, softened by a vulnerability I never thought I'd see. "I can't get the years back, B," he said, his voice heavy with the truth. "But I swear to you, I will spend the rest of my life making up for every second I missed." It wasn't a promise to fix things with money. It was a promise to fix them with time, with presence. That was a currency I finally understood. I just nodded, my heart too full for words. We got in the car and drove away from the building, away from the eviction notices and the sleepless nights. In the rearview mirror, I could see Leo, his breathing already seeming a little easier, safe and warm in the back. Donovan reached across the console and took my hand. His fingers laced through mine, a simple, solid connection. It wasn't the passionate grasp of a lost love, but the steady hold of a partner, a family. We drove through the sleeping city, the car a quiet bubble of hope moving through the darkness. The future was still a long road, full of conversations we needed to have and hurts that needed to heal. But for the first time, it didn't look like a dark, scary path I had to walk alone. It looked like a journey home. What did the story teach you about pride and second chances? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories that will change how you see the world.